In this lesson, we're going to discuss the Pestle model. Now, before we do, I want to point out that this part is not going to be on the exam. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because you may have been asking yourself back in the introduction to this section, why do we have these external factors around the outside of our four dimensions? We have the value in the center, and then around that we had the products and services. We had our four dimensions that are the four perspectives we look at our services, but there was these external factors circling around the outside. And that's what I want to discuss here. These are known as the Pestle model, which is a generic open source model that stands for the acronym of Pestle, P for political, E for economic, S for social, T for technological, L for legal, and E for environmental. Now, these are 6 things that are outside of your organization that you can't control. They're going to happen to you, but they are external factors that you have to think about when you're designing a service or a product. Now, these are the things that are outside your control, right? So let's think about one of a great example. I've used this example a lot throughout this course, but the example of Uber or Lyft, those ride-sharing services. When they first came out, they were a completely different model, and so there was a social component of it. Would people be willing to embrace this idea that they could get into a stranger's car by summoning them with their app? They could come up and you get in their car and they drive you to your destination, as opposed to using a traditional taxi. That's a different socio-dynamic than we're used to. And so that was something that people were worried about. They couldn't really control that as Uber. They had to just hopefully get enough people to change their minds in society that it became commonplace. And now most of us don't think twice about taking an Uber, do we? Another one might be technological. Maybe you're facing some challenges as you're trying to figure out how to build your service that you don't have the right technology to do it because that technology doesn't exist yet. For example, maybe you want to make sure you have this ultra-safe encryption, and so you want to design it with quantum-resistant technology, but quantum computers don't exist yet, so you can't quite do that. And when quantum computers do come out, all of the existing technology and encryption we're using is going to be considered obsolete. And so that's a technological impact external to our environment that we really can't control. There's also legal impacts. I'll go back to the Uber example. There are cities and there are countries that have actually made it illegal for Uber to operate there. They said that you have to have a taxi license to be able to run a taxi type service, and therefore Uber cannot be run there. And they have pushed Uber out of those communities. That's a legal restriction that they can't get through until they can get that law changed. How do you get a law changed? Well, you try to get some political pressure, right? And so maybe you're going to have to put some effort and lobbying into changing the minds of the political culture so they can change the law and make it so it's acceptable for you to run your service in those areas. All of these things are things that are going to affect us. That's the Pestle, the political, the economic, the social, the technological, the legal, and the environmental. Again, for the exam, you don't have to memorize these 6. It's just something for you to think about as you're considering your services and you're building them, because it is something that may impact you depending on the choices you make.